You wake up in a room. No memory of how you got there. Just a voice. Play the game or leave with nothing. You laugh until the first shot is fired. Then you realize this isn't fiction. It's a test of everything you are. Inspired by the viral series Squid Game, let's step into a darker truth that's closer than we think. Because the terrifying decisions, the betrayals, they weren't fiction, they were human. And they've already happened. In labs, in basements, behind two-way mirrors. What happens when rules vanish and survival becomes currency? The contestants in Squid Game were ordinary people drowning in debt, forgotten by society. They were offered a lifeline, a deadly game disguised as salvation. But let's step back. Would you sign up? If your back were truly against the wall, would morality matter? In 1971, a psychology professor named Philip Zimbardo ran an experiment at Stanford University. He wanted to observe the effects of perceived power. He split students into two groups, prisoners and guards. The results? Chilling. Within days, the guards became abusive. Prisoners broke down mentally. Some screamed in the night. Others begged to leave. But the simulation was so convincing, even Zimbardo lost sight of reality. It had to be shut down early. Just like in Squid Game, roles were everything. Once labeled, people became those roles. Guards turned cruel. Prisoners lost their sense of identity. All it took was a label and a system. This wasn't a television script. It was real. And it proved something terrifying. You don't have to be evil to do evil things. You just need the right pressure and permission. Let's talk about another test. A man named Stanley Milgram had a question. Would people harm others just because someone in authority told them to? Volunteers were instructed to deliver electric shocks to a person behind a wall whenever they answered a question incorrectly. The shocks weren't real, but the volunteers didn't know that. They heard screams, begging, silence. Even as the victim begged for mercy, the authority figure calmly insisted, "Please continue." And most people did. Some cried. Some shook. But they obeyed. Milgram discovered a truth that echoes through Squid Game. The majority will comply with cruelty if they feel someone else takes the responsibility. We are terrifyingly obedient. Now, rewind to the red light, green light scene. Panic, confusion. But after the first gunshot silence, why didn't they run? Why didn't they storm the gates? Because once the rules are clear, people follow them, even if those rules are fatal. We've been trained, socially and biologically, to obey to avoid chaos, even if that obedience kills us. Squid Game's greatest horror isn't the violence. It's the volunteerism, the second vote, the decision to return. People chose to re-enter. Why? Because outside the game, they were already dead. Crushed by debt, ignored by systems, invisible in daylight. The game offered them clarity, a clear goal. A shot, however slim. This isn't unique to fiction. History is filled with examples of humans seeking order, even in chaos. We crave structure, even brutal ones. When the world outside feels lawless, we run toward any system that offers rules. In Nazi Germany, ordinary people became executioners, not because they were monsters, but because the system rewarded obedience and punished hesitation. That's not fiction. That's documented history. Squid Game's psychological pull is this. It shows us, our reflection in a cracked mirror. Greed, fear, shame, and the ever-present question, what would you do? When the marble game starts, friendship turns into strategy. Trust becomes liability. Even love can't survive that tension. Why? Because survival always whispers louder. The brain in crisis mode reroutes morality. It stops weighing ethics and starts calculating risk. This is not a flaw. It's design. We are wired to survive. And in extreme conditions, that wiring becomes sharp, ruthless, almost primal. Not everyone snaps, but most of us bend. Squid Game exploits this beautifully. It doesn't show evil villains. It shows people just like us trying to win, trying to escape, trying to matter. Let's talk dopamine. Yes, the reward chemical. Each win, each survival, triggers a tiny surge. In the game, even violence becomes a high. The brain begins to associate danger with reward, blood with survival. This rewiring isn't unique to the game. It happens in war, in abuse, even in high-risk jobs. Then comes the question of anonymity. In Masks, the frontmen are faceless. Just like Milgram's volunteers, they feel less personal guilt. The mask is permission. When identity is stripped, conscience becomes quieter. It's the psychology of the uniform, of the badge, of the red jumpsuit. And what of the VIPs? The watchers, the betters, the ones who turn horror into entertainment? They are not just villains. They are us when we become numb, when violence becomes content, when suffering becomes just a show. Squid Game doesn't invent evil. It reflects it. It packages ancient truths into neon-lit games and makes us watch willingly. But there's something deeper. Why do we root for Ji-hoon? Why do we still crave a hero? Because even in the darkest spaces, we hope, we believe someone will not bend, that someone will rise, that someone will still choose kindness. This duality of darkness and light is what keeps us human, and it's what the experiments never fully captured. The sliver of rebellion. In the Stanford prison experiment, one participant did protest. One stood up, and it changed everything. In Milgram's study, some participants refused to go on. Their hands trembled, their voices cracked. But they said no. Squid Game whispers this same truth. Yes, the system is rigged. Yes, the game is cruel. But even here, you can choose not always to win, but to remain yourself, to not betray, to not become what they want you to be. The final twist of Squid Game isn't in who wins. It's in what they become. The real prize isn't money. It's identity. But here's the final layer. What if we are already in a game? Not with marbles or glass bridges, but with choices, systems, roles we didn't choose, debt, status, power, all designed, all structured like a game. The only question is, are you playing it consciously? Psychologists call this the illusion of freedom, the belief that we're choosing when we're reacting, obeying invisible rules. So what would you do? Not in fiction, but here, now. Would you challenge the game or master it? Because the greatest experiment isn't in a lab. It's in our lives. Every decision, every compromise, every silence, And maybe that's what makes Squid Game so unsettling. It's not fantasy. It's a mirror, and the face looking back is ours. No guards, no masks, no VIPs. Just people doing what they must to survive. But survival isn't the same as living. And victory isn't always winning. You are part of this psychological tapestry, this ongoing experiment. Every whisper you ignore, every truth you bend, adds to the game. But there's power in knowing, in pausing, in refusing, in seeing the rules for what they are, and breaking them. The question isn't, what would you do in Squid Game? The question is, what game are you already in? And more importantly, how far would you go to get out? This was not just a story, not just a show. This was your mind, whispering a warning. If this episode stirred something in you, don't let it fade. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the most dangerous games are the ones we don't know we're playing. This is Buzz Whispers, and we've only just begun. Thanks for listening. If this story pulled you in, hit that like button, subscribe, or share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Got questions or thoughts? Drop them below. I'll check them out soon. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.